Today on Mr. Media, I'll talk to Corey Michael Blake, CEO of Roundtable Companies, which is adapting popular business books, such as Wired magazine editor Chris Anderson's The Long Tail, to graphic novels. Stick around. Those drugstore spinner racks have never been so damn smart. Yeah. It was brought to you today by Audible. Audible is offering Mr. Media listeners a free audiobook download with a free 14-day trial to give you a chance to check out their amazing service. You can choose a free audiobook from Audible's library of tens of thousands of titles, including today's top bestsellers such as The Lincoln Lawyer by Michael Conley, Tina Fey's Bossy Pants, or even Genie Out of the Bottle by Barbara Eden. You could even download the biography of comic book and graphic novel legend Will Eisner, A Spirited Life. I wrote and read that one. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/radio. Again, that's audibletrial.com/radio for your free audiobook. Mr. Media is recorded live before a studio audience of 47-year-old fanboys who could really stand to take a bath and develop some practical business skills besides knowing how many comics fit snugly in a long box in the new media capital of the world, St. Petersburg, Florida. It's been a while since business writer Daniel Pink was a guest on Mr. Media to talk about his first graphic novel, Johnny Bunko, The Last Career Guide You'll Ever Need. That book was intended for an audience of job seekers who lacked some basic skills needed to succeed in the modern workplace. There were also people who weren't likely to buy and read Pink's non-fiction, pictureless narratives, such as A Whole New Mind or Free Agent Nation. Apparently Pink was onto something. Johnny Bunko has since been translated into 14 different languages. Now a company called Roundtable is working with SmarterComics to turn Pink's one-off project into an industry. It has produced graphic novels from 6 respected, best-selling business experts and is marketing them to an audience unlikely to read 300 pages of text, but probably willing to invest the time and effort into a 50-page comic book full of immediately useful information told in an entertaining fashion. At the top of the list of SmarterComics' initial release this April 2011 is The Long Tail by Wired magazine editor Chris Anderson. Also noteworthy is an adaptation of the 2,500-year-old The Art of War by Sun Tzu. It's a classic battle plan for success found on the shelf of every modern CEO. Now I got to add here, I don't know that every one of them has read it, but everyone I've met has a copy. You can usually tell which ones have read it and which ones haven't. Now, I know a little about educational comics myself, having written the biography of Will Eisner, who started the whole genre back in World War II with Army Motors. So I thought it'd be interesting to have Roundtable CEO Corey Michael Blake on the show to talk about his new enterprise. Corey, welcome to Mr. Media.
Thanks so much, Bob. I appreciate the opportunity.
My pleasure. Boy, it seems like it took us a long time to get to this point, doesn't it?
That's all right, man. We're here and that's what counts.
Old fumble lips here. So what inspired you to do a whole line of business-oriented graphic novels?
I've been a long-time storyteller. I was originally an actor out in Los Angeles, and I was working in commercials, the 30-second story, and was a huge fan of the ability to persuade and motivate people through storytelling. So I started getting hired by authors who weren't necessarily great writers themselves, but had a story to share and needed some guidance in the process. And I started working with an executive coach on a business book, and she wanted to deliver it using a character-driven story. And it's kind of, most business people are familiar with Five Dysfunctions of a Team, Patrick Lencioni's best-selling book. It uses a fable to get across great business principles. So we took that and we elevated it to a whole different level by using a really intense character-driven narrative about how a CEO really gets picked up by the bootstraps and is forced to change himself in order to change his company. And it worked, and it was such an exciting journey to create that. And at that point I said, at some point a business leader, an expert, is really going to need to have some gusto and put together a graphic novel version just as a different way to communicate with people. So we had this idea back in 2009. At that point, financially, we were not in a position to really dive into this whole medium. But then again, later in 2010, every year I ask my staff, what is it that we're not doing that you wish we were? And Nathan Brown, our creative director, he said, get us into comic books. Huge, huge comic book fan his whole life. He's got a huge library in his place. And so we went on the lookout, and we came across SmarterComics founder Franco Arda, who had a similar idea. And he had been a former investment banker with Deutsche Bank. He had some fun money. He wanted to do something creative and was a huge lover of business books. And so he invested in us producing 3 prototypes to prove that this could work. We looked at them. We were so excited after demonstrating to ourselves that this actually had some legs to stand on. Mm-hmm. And then we became joint investors in these first 6 books.
Now, is it more difficult to adapt an existing book like Chris Anderson's The Long Tail versus having someone write specifically for this format?
For us, it's actually not, because someone like a Chris Anderson might have spent a year or 2 years really crafting that narrative, and then we can summarize it down to its PowerPoint version, essentially. So because they've put in so much time, it's easy for us to crystallize that message and then build it out in illustration. Our scripting process is only a month long. So if you actually have to create the original content, I think we're probably, we're actually starting to do that with some content. It's more of a 6 to 9 months or even a year to create the script before the illustrators get involved.
Now, tell me about getting Chris Anderson involved. I'm guessing, as someone who's been reading Wired all the way back to the beginning, I know that they've always had a soft spot for comics and graphic novels. They frequently feature things that may not have any real connection to the Wired audience, but someone on the staff there just seems to think it's cool. Did that help? Getting Anderson, or how did that relationship develop?
It still blows my mind to this day how it happened. I wrote him an email. I found his email on Google. A lot of us are good at finding people's contact information, and I found a personal email address for him. I said, hey, we're interested in taking your book, The Long Tail, and introducing it to busy professionals, the Twitter generation, and comic book fans. In 24 hours, I got an email back that said, that sounds really cool. Let's talk to my agent.
Wow.
It was that easy. I'm sure you get a lot of ideas across your desk, too. I get a lot of ideas that are not so succinctly put that people, when I pitched this, Larry Wingett, too, Doc Elliott, all the people that we went to, they get it really quick. And everyone wants to reach this new generation, so it's a very easy sell. We originally approached about 20 authors, and these are the first 6 that jumped on real fast. And Chris Anderson was one of those that it just hit his sweet spot. It was something he was interested in. He loves being an innovator, and this cues him in to be one of the first to do something new like this. Mm-hmm. And he's a comic book fan, so it was an easy no-brainer for him.
And he is a comic book fan. Yes, there it is.
Oh, absolutely. So somebody who, like Larry Wingett, he loved the idea, not necessarily because he was a huge comic book fan, but because he always loved the idea of being a superhero. And that appeals to a lot of people. Who doesn't want to throw on a cape? And even if you're getting across business and life principles, you feel cool by being in a comic book. It's a lot of fun.
I actually took my cape off to do the interview, but I will be putting it on as soon as we're done.
Don't think I don't see it in the background over there.
Now, so you get a Chris Anderson involved. Let's stick with him because it's someone who's got
Sure.
the name recognition. Now, I know from writing books that usually once I sell the rights, they're gone. If somebody buys the rights to do a TV show or film rights from something I've written, that's it. They may humor me by saying, here's what we've come up with, but it's really out of my hands. Does Chris or any of your authors have anything to do with it once you acquire the rights to their book?
Yeah, we don't work like some of those traditional other entities where you take it and run, and especially because we're launching an entirely new platform. It's really important that the people that we're working with help to promote it. Mm-hmm. So the best way to do that is to keep them involved and keep them excited about the product. And when you take them along the creative journey by including them in all of the decision making and giving them approvals, at the end of the day, it's something they can be proud of. And that's something I learned way back as a filmmaker in Los Angeles. If you take care of the team that is creating the product, then everyone will enjoy the process of then taking it to market. If you ignore them throughout the process, then they're going to wish you the best of luck and hope you do something cool with it, but probably be far less involved in getting it out there. So it's an important part of our business model to keep them as involved as they want to be.
Very good. Well, Corey, let's take a quick break. This is
Sure.
Bob Andelman, and you're listening to and hopefully watching, in some places, the Mr. Media interview with Corey Michael Blake, CEO of Roundtable Companies, publisher of graphic novel editions of business classics From the Art of War to the Long Tail. We'll be right back.